Welcome to Basically a Geek Show, episode 60.33 in a third, the smell of our confusion.
So, basically,
we wanted to talk more.
Basically, WoW devs did an interview where they expanded upon Legion. And in doing so, they actually answered a lot of questions that you and I had posed.
Yeah,
right?
Just yesterday. So we felt we would kind of be remiss if we didn't, by the time what we said yesterday gets disseminated to both of our listeners, it will have already been like, all right, well, dumbass, they just posted it like the day after, duh. Mm-hmm. So here we are not being dumbass, well, trying not to be. I know you had a lot of things you wanted to go on with this, so...
Well, the first section here, MMO Champions up here has it all divided into talking points per category, and the first category is Demon Hunter. Before I get into that specifically, I wanted to ask you because it's not mentioned here, but I've seen it pretty heavily indicated outsourced. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the idea that the Demon Hunter seems to be the most restrictive class in terms of race options. It seems as if only Blood Elf and Night Elves can be Demon Hunters. And I mean, that makes sense lore-wise, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because it is relatively restrictive. It seems that with a lot of changes to race class dynamics in the past, it's been about opening up what were once restrictive classes and making them more versatile in the racial makeup, and now it seems to be the opposite of that.
I think it's cool. I mean, because for once they're actually keeping things in tune with the lore. Like, you and I have had this discussion a million times, if once, about the Death Knights.
Death Knights should only be open to races that can play paladins.
Right.
Because the whole idea about a Death Knight is that they're paladins who either lost hope or were corrupted and had their power of the light inverted.
Right, exactly. And, as it stood, pretty much I think every race can be a Death Knight.
And they finally stopped that, silliness. Pandaren can't be Death Knights.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Pandaren can't be Death Knights, because that would have really it made very little sense that Goblins and Worgen could be Death Knights.
Yeah, and I think they realized that and were like, okay, we gotta scale this back before it gets really stupid.
Yeah.
But as of Lich King, right, when Lich King was on, the only races I thought who should be able to be Death Knights, Death Knights would have been humans, dwarves, Draenei, and Blood Elves.
Right.
Because those were the paladin races at the time, and now, then they added Tauren paladins, so I guess Tauren Death Knights wouldn't be too bad, but, basically just limit it to whoever could be paladins could be Death Knights. I understand why they didn't do it, because that was the first hero class, and I guess they didn't want anyone to feel gypped.
Yeah.
And I guess now that we've already gone through the whole hero class, the novelty is perhaps a little less, so they don't mind keeping it restrictive.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, maybe I'm sure some people are going to have a little bit of a bitch fit about it. And, while I acknowledge their point, but I think they're going to be idiots. Just because, lore-wise, it just makes sense that, Blood Elves, Night Elves are the ones that will be Demon Hunters. Mm-hmm. Just, so I don't have a problem with that at all. Again, I think it's a good thing. It just makes a lot more sense. So, and it kind of also goes with this whole thing where a big shift in World of Warcraft has been, they've been putting a lot more emphasis on story for the last, 3 expansions now, including Legion. Not that there wasn't, any kind of story emphasis to begin with, but now they've really been going out of their way to accentuate it. And this just kind of keeps in lockstep with that theme, and I approve of it.
Indeed. And, the way that it's balanced, it's only one race in the Horde and only one race in the Alliance, so it's not even like one faction's getting a leg up. Both factions will be balanced in terms of Demon Hunter. And And given how much the player base seems to love elves, we'll probably see an equal amount of them.
Yeah.
On both sides.
And also, I mean, okay, given like the mutations of the Demon Hunter, they're almost like their own race themselves. I mean, visibly.
Yeah, but I have noticed that they're keeping they're keeping some of the stuff racially distinct. Like, I was looking through some pics, and part of the Demon Hunter thing is that they're blind, right? Like, they're blind and they have, like, bandanas where their eye sockets are burning through, right?
Right.
Night Elf Demon Hunters will have the Illidan-style bandana around their eyes.
Right.
Whereas Blood Elves will have kind of like this really ornate-looking, like,
Ray-Ban.
Blood Elf... Basically. So, I mean... there's a lot of mutations involved, but you're still gonna be able to, like, look at them and say, okay, that Demon Hunter's a Night Elf, and that Demon Hunter's a Blood Elf. They still have their own distinct racial aesthetics going on.
Yeah.
But let's just jump into the meat of this interview. Demon Hunters, I mentioned the Demon Hunters are gonna start somewhere between level 95 and 100, which is interesting because in Lich King, and again, we're gonna be referencing Lich King a lot because that was the last time we did this hero class thing. In Lich King, the max level was 80.
Right. And DK started at level 55.
And you started at 55, and assuming you did the Death Knight classes right, you'd be at level 60 by the time you got out of the starting zone.
Yeah.
So you were getting out around 20 levels below level cap. Here, they're gonna start you 10 to 15 below level cap, which... I don't know. It seems interesting that it's so close. I guess it's also in the same vein as the free 90 boost from Draenor. It's a way to entice older players to come back. Like, hey, if you play the Demon Hunter, you can be almost max level and you won't have to wade through old content.
Right, exactly. And, Blizzard is finally kind of getting this, notion that, like, people don't... A lot of us don't mind going through the old content, but after a while it does start to get, old. Mm-hmm. You don't want to keep slugging through all this shit.
Especially, repeating, content, right? Like, okay, if you're a human and you do the human starting zone, I mean, you do it once, maybe you do it twice for an alt on a different class, but then, say you do a Pandaren. Well, the problem with the Pandaren, right, is like once you do the Pandaren 1 to 10 starting experience, it then dumps you into the human starting zone, so if you've already done the human stuff before, you're basically now repeating it again for a third or fourth time on your Pandaren.
Right.
So,
Though really, I mean, if you're level 10 when you get ported to the human starting area, which is Northshire Valley, no, you don't have to do that, the 1 to 10 human stuff, but you still have to do the Elwyn Forest quests before you can move on to other stuff. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and that does get old. That does get a bit tiresome. So, I mean, you honestly do have the option. I mean, you can always go to Dunmorrow or, whatever
but then again, if you've done those before, right?
Well, yeah. I'm just saying that there are options depending on how many ults that you've had. You can always go to, not South Shore. Is it South Shore? Ashenvale.
No, South Shore got blown up by the plague.
Yeah, Ashenvale.
Honest
I mean, you can always go to Ashenvale. I mean, like, you're starting near Stormwind, so you can go to the boat, you can go over to Ashenvale.
But again, though, if you have a Worgen ult, chances are you've already done Ashenvale because after you hit 15 in the Worgen starting experience, they dump you into the Night Elf starting, area.
I guess what I'm saying is that depending on how many ults that you have, there's at least a decent chance that you have a starting zone that you're not sick to death of. It's when you get out of the starting zones, though, that things become that, like, pretty much all roads begin intersecting, right? I mean,
and if you've done the Draenei starting zone once, you never want to do it again.
Amen to that.
Same with the Blood Elves, actually. I have a Draenei Paladin, I have a Blood Elf Paladin. Both of those zones, both of the Blood Elf and Draenei starting zones are unbearable. It is like, because that was early BC. That was before they really learnt how to make questing not suck. And it's bad.
Yeah. I mean, and the sad thing is, like, that is always going to be there, evidently. Like, because if they change those starting zones, it will evidently break the fabric of the universe.
No, I found an explanation for why they can never redo the Draenei and Blood Elf starting zones. Like a legitimate explanation.
Okay.
In order to ensure that only people who paid for the BC expansion could experience, who could see the Draenei and Blood Elf starting zones, those zones are actually placed in the same sort of instance as Outlands. Right? So, like, technically, if you go from, like, the bottom of Eastern Kingdoms all the way up to the border of the Blood Elf zone, you're all technically on the same quote-unquote server, right?
Right.
When you go into, Quel'Thalas, which is the Blood Elf zone, when you cross into that, on the map, you're just going further north on the same continent, but as far as the game is concerned, you've now entered a different server that houses all of the BC content. And apparently, completely redoing the Blood Elf, and the same for the Draenei zone. So redoing the Blood Elf and the Draenei zones would basically only work if they were completely redoing Outland. Is how I understand it.
Gotcha.
And so, they're not going to do that, right, unless it makes sense to redo Outland, and they haven't done that yet, so why would they redo Outland if it wasn't going to amount to anything?
Let's face it, if they were going to redo Outlands, they would have done it with Draenor. That would have been the time to have done it.
The original plan was basically Outland Cataclysm. The original plan was that Garrosh was gonna find some Titan relic that would allow him to rebuild Outland back into Draenor. And then that would be what eventually, but then they were like, apparently the reason they stopped that was like, they said that plan was too cerebral for Garrosh. Which I assume means that they couldn't find a way that he'd realistically know how to activate the Titan artifact when he found, he'd probably be like bashing it with Gorehowl. Work!
Yeah. Make thing happen!
So obviously that morphed, but yeah, Draenor, Outland isn't gonna get redone, which means that the Blood Elf and Draenei. But anyway, moving on. They're introducing a new type of weapon, glaives. They're a pair of single-handed weapons that can come together to form a, dual-handed weapon.
Right.
They didn't say it, but it seems as if it's possible that they're going to be exclusive to Demon Hunters, but that they said that the future Demon Hunters will be able to wield standard two-handled agility weapons as well. What do you think about that? Are you pissed off you are not getting a cool glade for your pally?
No. I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, because simply put, like, alright, Demon Hunters are an agility class anyway, so even it still wouldn't be a paladin weapon. Now, I could see where maybe like rogues or hunters might be, or especially monks, might be a little bit miffed about it, but as a paladin, I don't have any right to give a shit. Mm-hmm. Not my problem. It wouldn't be for me anyhow.
And, I don't know, maybe you might like it for transmog.
Yeah, but, I guess, but still, paladins can't dual wield anyhow.
Yeah, you can but you can single wield for, I don't know if you had a shield, I don't know. Anyway, the artifact glaives can be seen in some of the character creation screenshots for Demon Hunters, so just look those up and you'll get a chance to see what the artifact weapons for them will look like.
Look your mom up.
They talked about having the Demon Hunter wear mail, but said that didn't fit the class identity. I suspect that was to differentiate them from rogues, maybe, because rogues wear leather. Right. And I guess they were like, well, let's make them different and we'll have them wear mail, but then they just said, fuck it, we'll just have them wear leather anyway. And then they said that.
Like, okay, if they're going to be worried about the Demon Hunter being like, too much like any other class, it's really monks that they need to worry about with that, not rogues.
Monks wear, do they wear leather or do they wear cloth?
Monks wear leather.
Okay.
And especially because, okay, the Demon Hunter is only going to have two specs. It's going to have a DPS spec and a tank spec. That's it. which again is another design decision that I frankly approve of. But at the same time, like from what they're talking about, like with the Demon Hunter tanking style, it sounds very monk-like. It's going to be high agility, you know, of course, high dodge, high parry. It's going to be avoidance-based. Just like the monk. So, if they're worried about it being too much like any other existing class, then monk is what they'd have to worry about, not rogue, I would think at least.
For now, Demon Hunters are gonna be the only ones who can get tattoos. It's fine. I never cared about tattoos.
I'd like to have one on my tune.
What? Would you get the name of some guy across his back that says Thumper?
No. I don't know. Maybe, like a tattoo on his right arm that says Kilroy was here.
Demon Hunters have been considered since Wrath, but it finally fit an expansion story and theme, so they're adding them now. In order to fight demons, Illidan had to partner with demons. He had to sacrifice many things for great power, which is why Demon Hunters look somewhat like Illidan. Alright, moving on to classes. No stat squish is planned for this expansion. I know you're probably happy about that.
Well, I mean, it's really not necessary. I mean, it's definitely not necessary now. I still said it really wasn't necessary to begin with. But it's definitely not necessary now since they just did one. And I think it's a good thing because they can take that time and not waste it, making numbers smaller and, you know, apply it to actual fucking content.
Indeed. Team hasn't decided if there's going to be another talent row or not, and the artifact weapon will have a decent number of choices, which I think is actually a cool way to, kind of change the talent thing up a bit, because the talent trees aren't changing, they're just making it interestingly so that the talent trees won't be the only way you get talents. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's a cool thing too. And kind of also tying in with the artifact weapon, I know I said yesterday, like, you know, what are they going to do with weapons drops, right? Because nothing should be better than Ashbringer.
Well, they announced that, you will not loot any weapons in this expansion.
Right,
so,
because nothing can be better than Ashbringer. And again, guys, me personally, I'm just going to keep using Ashbringer as the example. There is an artifact weapon for every spec of every class. Everyone gets one. I'm just using Ashbringer because A, it's one of the two most famous weapons in the game, lore-wise, and number two, I play Pally, so yeah, Ashbringer. So,
Indeed.
But, yeah, if you play something different, then you're going to get your own. Everyone is getting one. That's just what I'm going to be using for an example, and probably Mike too, because, yeah, he plays Pally as well, so.
Woo!
Deal with it, bitches!
Beast Hunters, okay. Classes. Some more class-specific stuff. Survival Hunters will now be a melee class of a pet, which is interesting because Hunters in general used to be able to have melee capabilities, and then they took them away, and I guess they're giving them back to Survival.
Yeah, which, that is interesting.
Well, it seems here that what they're trying to do is make the three Hunter classes more distinct from each other.
Like, what I find to be kind of funny though is that Hunter, I mean, if you look at it, Hunter seems to be one of those classes that Blizzard never really knows quite what to do with. Like, they get some kind of overhaul every expansion. A major overhaul. Whereas, like, Paladins, you know, since I've been playing the game, have had maybe one overhaul. I mean, like, one major overhaul beyond just, you know, the mechanics tweaks and shit. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. Like, they keep, like, doing drastic things with Hunters, and there may be other classes out there that I'm less familiar with that have received similar treatment. But, it just seems at least like it's more frequent with Hunters. Anyways, going on.
So Beastmaster Hunters will fight at ranged with a gun or a bow, and they'll have a pet.
Right.
And Marksmanship Hunters will fight at ranged with a gun and or bow with no pet, which is interesting because that's kind of, I have a feeling that maybe that one talent that they added for Hunters to take away your pet was maybe a beta of this concept to see if it would work.
Probably. And I think it's cool. I mean, that was like always, I do have a hunter. I haven't, it's not, it's high-ish level, but it's not max level. But at the same time, it's one of those things where I've always
You made the right choice spending your boosts on your mage to troll people for Dalaran portals.
Right? But, no, it's kind of like, I don't know. I really liked the gun aspect of the hunter, but the pet aspect, I just really never cared about. I mean, yeah, there is the ability to go out and you can get your cool exotic pets and all this shit. And yeah, that's great. But I don't want to have to bother managing the pet and all this other stuff. I actually like the idea of just going around shooting shit.
Well, if they're going to do this thing where they're going to make...
World of Contracraft.
If they're going to do a thing, right, where they're making one hunter spec completely dedicated to firearms, no pets, just ranged with firearms, I'd actually like to see them use this as an excuse to maybe develop some single-handed firearms. Like you can, like right now, all firearms are two-handed, be it a bow or a gun.
Yeah.
I'd like them for instance, to develop some single-handed, maybe some pistols that you can dual wield.
Yeah, and that's been something that's been on people's wish list for a while. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring that out with this one. I mean, I know.
Well, my thinking is now that you have a class dedicated to firearms and just firearms, it's maybe the excuse needed to push that along in development.
Maybe. It could happen. And, I'm sure they're not done announcing cool things for Legion yet. And probably a few not so cool things as well while they're at it. So, I mean, it could still happen. I kind of think at this point, if it had been one of the things on the docket, that they would have said something, but it could happen.
And also, one of the guns has to be modeled after a, Vulture PPK.
Megatron?
No, he was a P-38. The PPK is James Bond's gun.
Oh. Anyways, moving on.
He got it because his Beretta jammed on him.
Right. Moving on, sir.
Alright, now we've got some warlocks stuff. Basically, they're just gonna make demonology warlocks, more focused on controlling demons, so that's interesting. Discipline Priest. It seems like they're giving Discipline Priest a huge overhaul, but a lot of this is mechanic-based, which is stuff we like to stay away from. But if you do play a Discipline Priest, be forewarned, it looks like you're getting a huge overhaul. They made a point to say Holy Priests are not changing, so okay.
Yeah.
Then they talk about fist weaving. I don't know what fist weaving is. I guess it's maybe a monk thing? Sounds like it'd be a monk thing.
Did you say mist weaving?
It says fist weaving.
Fist weaving.
It sounds like something a monk would do.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
Maybe it's a type what's supposed to be mist weaving?
Yeah,
but it says fist weaving.
I don't know. Anyways, yeah, we don't know what the fuck that is. Moving on.
Okay, so, as we said, as far as artifacts go, we will not loot weapons. Because, that would be stupid. Why would I need some random axe I pulled out of some demon's asshole if I have the Ashbringer? Right? New item bonus system. Ward sockets and extra stats worked out well, so that could be extended. Cool. They're not quite sure how, artifact weapons are gonna work in terms of weapon classification.
Right.
But I like this mentality where, the idea is to have an item that players are constantly powering up throughout the expansion. And it basically saying it rewards players for doing all the expansion's content. And I like that, because I'm one of those players. I'm not a hardcore player, right? I don't raid Mythic weekly or anything like that. But I still am a bit of a completionist when it comes to an expansion zones. I like to do all of the quests in a zone. I like to see all of the story of an expansion. And so I like the idea that, if I do that, I can do cool stuff with my legendary artifact weapon.
I like bacon nipples.
There's not going to be any catch-up mechanic for artifact weapons on alts, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah, because I'm guessing that, perhaps there's going to be some differences in the way, you procure Ashbringer as opposed to Doomhammer or something like that. So...
Well, this thing seems very story-based, where there's a story that goes along with how you get your weapon, and so stores are going to be different depending on not just classes, but specs.
Right.
So even if you have, say, 2 pallies, one's a protection and one's ret, each legendary artifact, weapon, quest line is going to be different. So...
Though they did say that there will be catch-up mechanics possibly for, like...
For spec switching, like if you are a ret pally and you have Ashbringer, but then you decide you want to be protection, then there'd be a catch-up mechanic for you to get that protection pally artifact quicker.
Right.
You will get it's going to be revealed how we get weapons from characters currently wielding them. They talked a lot about the Ashbringer, right? And the way that they mentioned it, picking up where it fell in battle, leads me to believe that Tyrion Fordring, who currently wields the Ashbringer, he's dying.
On a side note, drinking game, everyone, every time we say Ashbringer, take a shot.
I just think it's fun. Like, I wonder if Tyrion Fordring died sustaining injuries that could have been avoided with every man for himself.
I hope so. I like to think so.
They're gonna, when they put that in a cinematic, it's gonna be all, like, dramatic, and we're all supposed to be going, no, Tyrion! But you're just gonna be laughing, going like, serves you right, asshole!
Die! Yes! Embrace the darkness! Oblivion is your friend. It loves you. Yes, enjoy your sweet nothingness.
You do realize they're just gonna build another statue for him for dying Val.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm fucking sure. God damn it.
Jack has undealt with issues regarding Tyrion Fordring.
It's a fucking chode.
Which is funny because we both play pallies and he's supposed to be like the ultimate pally that all pallies aspire to be.
He's a fucking idiot. Fucking sits there entombed in ice for an entire fight, unlocks himself.
Meanwhile, Arthas is raping us all with Frostmourne, and he's just sitting there.
Right, and he finally realizes to put every man for himself on his fucking action bar and clicks it to free himself from the fucking ice, then one-shots Arthas and kill steals from the entire raid.
After we've gotten him down to 1 hit point.
Right, well, yeah, basically. And he gets 3 fucking statues? He gets 3 statues? Let me tell you something. You don't know... Sorry.
They say that eventually you'll be able to unlock every trait in the artifact weapon tree, which is cool. It adds some versatility. So, like, I like that because it basically allows you to fundamentally change your playing style without changing spec. Like, you can still be a ret pally, but just be a ret pally, but just emphasize different abilities over others.
Right.
So I like that. They said it's going to be something that happens the entire expansion, where artifact weapons are being leveled. And I like that too because it gives us something to, like, you're always working towards something. It's a good way to maybe make content droughts not seem as droughty.
It's an interesting retention mechanic, as opposed to, the garrison from Draenor, which I still maintain was kind of mediocre. This is actually, that as well as the PvP overhaul with like 50 levels and you spec up and you choose talents, that's a lot more engaging and I might actually PvP a little bit more just to progress through that and see what it's like.
We'll get to PvP in a bit, but I want to say I agree with that too, because right now the biggest, obstacle for me getting into PvP is I don't want to spend hours dying so I can eke out enough points to buy a piece of gear that will make me somewhat less squishy.
Right. Exactly. So,
fuck, I've got porn to watch. I could spend my time doing that instead, right?
Indeed.
Back weapons will have relic slots, which will determine its raw item stats, DPS, item level, etc., and modifies the traits you've chosen, so the artifact stats will improve as you defeat bosses. That's cool that you can I've always been of the mind that when it comes to MMOs, the more customization, the better. You always want to err on the side of more choice for the players when developing an MMO.
Right.
And this sounds like even though everyone's going to have Ashbringer, right, it seems like everyone's going to be able to have theirs exactly how they like it. So I'm digging it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Artifact weapons can be transmogged into other weapons, but not the other way around, as we talked about. They said that they do have cool weapons in mind for priests, I guess, because priests are lame. Earning the artifact, has a class and spec, specific quest, but isn't anywhere near the Green Fire quest for warlocks from Pandaria in terms of scale or difficulty. And that's good, because not to say I want everything to be for the casuals, but from watching, Let's Plays of people who did the Green Fire quest, that got ridiculously and stupidly hard near the end.
I honestly have not watched. I have very little idea what.
It gets stupidly hard near the end. It's like, here's a raid boss at the end. Defeat him by yourself, please.
Nice.
Although it does seem fun because apparently you get to rob a combo blind.
Well,
after lying to him.
Well, okay, the thing is though, like, I don't know, with things like the Green Fire quest for the warlocks, if they had something like that for paladins, it was equal on scale of difficulty for a similar for a similar payout. I wouldn't mind if it was retardedly hard because, well, it's not important, right? I mean, it's not a performance enhancing thing. It's an aesthetic. So it's not obligatory that you do this to become better at your role. It's just something cool that they put in because it's cool. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I mean, you don't have to fucking do it. So if it's too hard,
but at the same time, though, these
and I say this is a very mediocre player, mind you.
But keep in mind, these artifact quests aren't, minor aesthetic things. This is like this is one of the new mechanics that the entire expansion's based around.
Right, no, I know. I mean,
so they've got to make it more accessible to the vast majority.
And in this case, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Raids, blah, 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 blah. The only thing here on raids I really want to talk about is, that one of the rumors that Sylvanas might be a raid boss, they responded with, "That's interesting."
Lol.
Now, I bring that up because, Blizzard does this every time they release a WoW expansion, they give that expansion sort of its own information page, right?
Right.
Well, if you go to the, World of Warcraft Legion page, it's battle.net/wow/Legion. A lot of these pages for different expansions under a character list, they don't list every character in the game, they only list those characters who are going to be important.
Right.
Well, if you go down to the character list for Legion, Gen Greymane and Sylvanas are both listed. Alongside Illidan, and Khadgar.
So, are you still holding out hope for Gilneas then?
I am, if not for a reconquest of Gilneas and at least closure on that storyline, I have a feeling we're going to see Gen Greymane finally confront Sylvanas for plague bombing his country and then killing his son. He's probably a bit peeved.
Got you.
And ultimately that's what I want. I want closure, because as it is now, that whole thing is sort of unresolved. Last we know in the lore, Gilneas was invaded by the Forsaken, then the Forsaken were repulsed, and Gilneas is Forsaken free, but it's still fucked up, so we can't go back. And I just want closure to that storyline, right? Like, I just want them to say, Gen Greymane kicked Sylvanas in the cunt.
Yeah.
And now we're all and now it's good. And now it's cool. I'm like, okay, that storyline ended, because right now Gen got no, closure for Sylvanas kind of fucking his life up.
Exactly.
But But the fact that they have that they said that it's interesting that people are thinking Sylvanas might be a raid boss, combine that with both Sylvanas and Gen being listed as main characters on the expansion character page, it just gets you thinking, you know. Order halls. This is basically going to be the next evolution of garrisons. Won't have an auction house or bank, so they've cut me off right from the start. They're like, we saw what you did, and we're not letting you do it again.
Right.
You're gonna spend less time in your order halls than you did in your garrisons. You go back to do quests and work on your artifact and interact with champions. You're gonna spend a lot of your downtime low in Dalaran.
Which, you know what, I'm fucking fine with.
This Dalaran was awesome.
Yeah, I wanna go masturbate in Dalaran right now. Wait, is this Anduin?
Yes, Anduin's listed.
Okay. He just looks so much different now.
They gave him a new character model and a new outfit. And I have to say, okay, I have a theory. I think Varian's dying.
I think so too. I was just about to say that.
I think Varian's dying in this expansion.
Oh, in this expansion, huh? Maybe.
I think okay. Okay. Blizzard mentioned, at the unveiling, that at the Broken Shore event, which is going to open the invasion of this new continent of the Tomb of Sargeras, they called it the place where heroes fell. And they mentioned that by the end of that experience, they said every player who has played WoW for the past 5 to 10 years will be shocked. My guess is a bunch of main characters are dying, Varian's one of them.
So we're going Game of Thrones in this bitch.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be World of Warcraft with special guest writer George R.R. Martin.
And we're gonna go Red Wedding all up in this fucker.
Everyone you love is dead!
You know, I don't want to see Varian go bye-bye, but okay, you know, if it keeps things interesting, keeps story going, if it's a good story, I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
As long as Anduin's a twat.
But he's gonna be king.
Well, yeah, I know. But we'll, you know, I don't know. That'll leave things open for the future.
Alright, let's see what is, going on. Okay. Dalaran sewers, were mentioned as being associated with rogues for their guild hall.
Yeah, it's, the guild halls, or the class order halls or whatever, it's something that I'm still mad about. I really don't care that, I want to see it in action before I decide whether or not I give a shit. Right now I don't.
I'm a little disappointed about that though, because I always kind of liked the sewers in Dalaran, and if they're gonna be like rogue exclusive, that's gonna piss me off, because I'd like to go back there if they give Dalaran a facelift.
True. Maybe they'll have a section of it that everyone can access, and this section is just rogues.
I want to go to the place where they have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Easter egg. Order halls, may have different sections. For example, in the Paladin Order Hall, Blood Elf Paladins might be in a different section from the Sunwalkers, as well as humans and dwarves, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because all of the way that the Paladins work, right, is that you have, like, humans and dwarfs, which are more or less the same order. Then the Draenei have their own order. And then the Tauren have their own order, and Blood Elves have their own order. So that makes sense that there'd be some separation.
Right.
Or as I call it, segregation.
Lol.
You cow people stay in the back!
Lol. So what else have we got?
Fantasy in Draenor is about collecting followers to raise an army. In Legion, you are the leader of a class order, and you have a smaller number of elite heroes by your side. You are the most elite paladins in Azeroth, and together we will conquer this evil. BRB, gotta go make grilled cheese!
Lol.
PvP, as we said, PvP gear. The goal is to make PvP gear go away. Basically, there's going to be, a separate PvP leveling system, and you get better at PvP through that than through gear, more or less.
Gotcha.
And I know that you and I are both excited about that. I imagine there's a lot of hardcore PvPers, or like,
Yeah, again, it might actually encourage me to PvP a bit more. If nothing else in the beginning, just to kind of see what it's like, see what it's about, and to not have it be gear based. I've been against the idea of PvP gear from the start. Just another fucking set of junk to keep in your fucking bags. And, you know, the less things you have to grind for to get, the better. And of course, again, I say this as a PvE player who just doesn't want to be arsed with most of the things that PvP is known for. I just want to go in there, get killed a few times, maybe have a few laughs and be done with it. That's really about all it's good for with me.
I mean, exactly, cow ninjas.
Right, exactly. You know, WoW PvP, they tried to make it an esport. They failed several times. To me, it is and always will be a PvE game with irritated me because it causes my shit to get nerfed so that they can have their little clusterfuck. And now they're getting rid of a lot of things that are causing me to think that way, and I wholeheartedly approve.
Well, maybe they realize that as far as esports go, they're never going to compete with the MOBAs.
Well, yeah, well now they have their own as well, so
yeah.
So moving on.
Underworld, location of the Broken Isles will be revealed in the future, although as far as the lore is concerned, it's right by the Maelstrom, so whatever. Team isn't sure how they'll handle Dalaran yet. They could set up sanctuary areas again like they did last time, or make it more split up. I don't see what was so problematic with the, Sun Reaver Sanctuary and the Silver Covenant Sanctuary, and like the Alliance was with the Silver Covenant and the Horde was with the Blood Reavers. I don't see, I could see maybe them wanting to change it up so it's just not a carbon copy of Lich King. But
well, especially since the Sun Reavers
got kicked out.
Right. So it'd probably just need to be labeled Alliance and Horde. I also really enjoyed flying my dragon into the Horde area. Just, for that 5 seconds before the game lag would catch up and they'd kick me out.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, the Sun Reavers got kicked out because they violated the terms of service.
Lol.
Alright, moving on, flying, they're gonna do the same thing as they did in Draenor. You complete an Uber achievement, you get to fly. Okay. Future. This is gonna be some interesting stuff because this is gonna deal with, the future of the game. The team still wants to release expansions faster, and I have to say, this, unveiling of this expansion this early convinced me that they're serious about that.
Yeah, it did. I agree.
Legion's gonna be released, sometime next year, but no specific date has been set. As such, there isn't a solid, patch schedule for Legion yet. Expansion after Legion is already being planned. I eagerly await Corgis Unleashed. The cinematic isn't complete just yet, that being the main opening cinematic for the expansion. There's gonna be a transmog overhaul, but since this was listed in future, I don't expect it to happen in Legion, or at least not right away. It's probably something they're toying with, maybe.
Right.
And then they just saying that they think WoW is a social game. WoW is a game you play with your friends!
Incoming patch 7.1, Facebook integration. No raids. Sorry. Could have handled that better.
Twitter integration cost us a raid tier. Okay. They did say that 6.1 was not named correctly and they could have done better. How fucking nice of them to have acknowledged that.
Right.
Garrisons are staying in Draenor, you can go back and visit whenever. Okay, this is interesting because this addresses the subscriber count. The subscriber count is more volatile than it has been because players have gotten older and don't have much free time. As long as players are happy and enjoying the game, the team doesn't mind doesn't mind, subscriber rate peaks and valleys. They just want to ensure that you have a great experience and feel like you're getting your money's worth.
Which, again, this is being asked of the creative team. This has nothing to do with the business end of things. So these guys, of course, they aren't concerned with subscriber numbers really. It's not going to impact what they do. This isn't what they handle. So yeah, their responses are in line with what they should be saying for the creative team.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. But I don't think that it's just a case of the player base getting older.
No, I mean, is that some of it? Yes, it is. But is it, okay. There's a reason why subscriber hemorrhaging was stymied when 6.2 hit.
Mm-hmm.
Because 6.1 was a fucking joke. Blizzard knows it was a fucking joke. I'm telling you, it is responsible for a healthy part of that subscriber loss that they had. That coupled with the miserable launch of the game where it was unplayable for most people for the first fucking week. They dropped the ball on so many things in that quarter, and they got what they deserved.
Indeed. The team claims that they don't make decisions based on what the subscriber count is. They focus on making the best game they can, learn some lessons, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, which again is what I just said. They're the creative team, so yeah, they're going to say that.
But it's interesting, though, that they say that after we get an expansion that seems to be so chock full of everything we've ever loved.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Dollaran, artifact weapons, hero class demon hunters. I mean, I said it in our last recording, but I think it holds true the more I think about it. This is basically Wrath of the Lich King with the Scourge replaced with the Legion. Because, think about it. We've got a new continent with a northern-esque aesthetic, with Vikings even, and a hero class that relates to the primary antagonist.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you on pretty much all that. It is not a redo of the Wrath of the Lich King. It is a spiritual successor in style and tone and aesthetic to Wrath of the Lich King in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Which hopefully means you and I will enjoy it as much as we did Wrath, but we won't because nostalgia.
Indeed. And then they said that they didn't think something like Pandaria a mistake because focus on new places and characters was a nice change of pace. It was a nice break from having one big bad guy with more of a focus on exploration and adventure.
And I agree with that.
I agree with that too. Exploring Pandaria was very fun for me, and honestly, in the wake of Warlords of Draenor's miserable performance, I don't think anyone can look back at Pandaria and call it a failure. I mean, Mists of Pandaria, in terms of subscriber rates, looks like fucking BC in comparison to Warlords of Draenor.
And exactly. I mean, Draenor makes Cataclysm look like a smashing success.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. Moving on.
No, that's it.
Okay.
That was the developer interview.
So, again, just a few notes to that we just came across we wanted to tack on. We're going to, basically we are going to release these in 3 parts, which you're probably listening to this one last, so me saying this makes a little difference. So yeah, you'll see it when we upload it. Anything else, sir?
No, I'm just gonna plug our stuff. This has been basically a Geek Show on the 3rd and final installment of episode 60, the World of Warcraft Legion edition. You can, catch us at basicallyasportshow.com, on Twitter at a Geek Show, and, you can send us an email at basicallyageekshow@gmail.com. And of course, YouTube, iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher. For Jack, this is Mike. Finally! Signing off, episode 60.
We promise. Good night.